All right, everyone, thank you for being here. I appreciate it. Thanks to the audience. Thanks for the candidates as well. And of course, all the people watching in live stream. This is the Special Education Forum for the 2026 Eanes ISD Board of Trustees election. And I want to thank everyone for being here. I'm Brad Swale. I'm a podcast host, a executive producer of podcasts, as well as father of a special needs child here at Eanes. All three of my kids go to Forest Trail. So it's truly an honor to be here doing this today for such a great cause. Our special education community is a vital part of what makes Eanes strong. Today is about ensuring every student is seen, supported, and given the opportunity to succeed. We are grateful to have candidates who care deeply about our students, and this is our opportunity to hear directly from them. And of course, missing today is Robert Morrow, who is running for place 1. I'll read the rules and some of the prohibited behaviors, and then we will get going. So each candidate will have 75 seconds. A yellow time card will be raised. That's a 15-second warning. And then a red time card will be raised, which means stop. A place order and the place order and candidate order will rotate each round. Responses must remain relevant to the question and the role of school board trustee. The following behaviors are strictly prohibited: use of profane, obscene, or vulgar language, personal attacks, threats, or harassment, hate speech, or discriminatory remarks, sexually explicit or inappropriate comments, any conduct that disrupts the orderly flow of the forum. And of course, as the moderator, I may intervene at any time to enforce time, relevance, and conduct. I have a strong feeling that I won't have to be doing that today. But just so y'all know, I can. All candidates have agreed to the forum standards and expectations. We also ask that our audience please silence your phones, refrain from side conversations or disruptive behavior, so we can maintain a respectful environment. The forum is being live streamed and recorded for later viewing. So we'll start with question 1, which will go to candidate Opte for place 3 to begin. And the question is, what meaningful experiences have you had with the disability community, and how will those real-world perspectives influence your decision-making for our special education students?
Sure.
And if you want to say your name and what place you're running for, that
Can you hear me?
beginning here, that'd be great.
Or I could just be loud.
Is the microphone?
Yeah.
Hello? Oh,
There you go.
okay.
Perfect.
Hi there. I'm Swasti Update. I have a 2nd grader at Barton Creek Elementary and a 6th grader at Westbridge Middle School. So I do not have a special needs child. What I do have is 2 years of creating a Facebook group that holds Eanes leadership accountable. I've had so many special ed parents reach out to me with very similar themes, right? So I've heard feedback that the IEP isn't being followed, that there's a lack of tailored educational materials, or there are administrative barriers in scheduling timely meetings. Sometimes 504 accommodations stop when the teacher changes. There's just a general sentiment that there hasn't been enough support for parents and the SpED students in being able to do these basic administrative, things to help the students. Parents shouldn't have to fight for everything. I worked in healthcare where I help marginalize, populations like the elderly. And I would love to help support the teachers and students. The students and the parents in this community.
Thank you. So, same question for candidate Hearn in place 3. Do you want me to repeat the question?
I think I've got it.
Okay, cool. Happy to repeat it anytime.
Thank you. So I'm Diane Hearn. I'm running for a 2nd term for place 3. I have 3 children who went through the Eanes system, and my youngest just graduated last year. I too do not have any children who have needed special education services, but my experiences with the disability community span family members, longtime friends and parents in other districts and states, and also the families and students that I've met while raising my 3 children here in Eanes for 20 years. And also, of course, during the last 3 years as a trustee. I have a cousin with Down syndrome who I live near in Maryland, and I saw how my aunt and uncle had to constantly think about what skills that my cousin needed to go on for her life beyond K-12. I also have a nephew with autism who is also in Maryland. And for the first time, he's going to be pulled out of public school to go to private school because the schools can't serve him anymore. Contrastingly, I also have friends in other states and also in Eanes whose children with disabilities have thrived in public education. And finally, as a trustee, I've also had the opportunity to meet just so many students in Eanes with a wide variety of disabilities and also educators who support them. And I understand that there's so much great work that our educators do and that we are, I want to help ensure that we're positioned to continue doing that in the future. Thank you.
Good. Next, same question goes to Laura Clark, place 2.
I'm Laura Clark. I'm running for re-election to place 2. So we got these questions in advance, and I was really struggling with how to answer this one. I have 2 kids who had IEPs, one for OHI and one for autism. I am careful with their stories because they're their stories to share, and they did not sign up to be on the school board. The other day I pulled into the parking lot for the Best Buddies walk, and I saw a mom there who I had first met about 20 years ago. And our kids were probably 2 and 3 at the time, and we were sitting in the waiting room at the SLP, the OTPT's office, like 3 days a week at least. We sat there together and we got to know each other. And then as years went by, we didn't see each other as often, but then there was a day that I ran into her in HEB, and my 8-year-old we were preparing for his 3rd surgery. And none of these surgeons are close by, of course, so we were flying back and forth to New York. We were exhausted. And she said, "How's it going?" And I just went, "Oh," because she got it. And she was the only person who really understood what it was like. It is.
Thank you, Ms. Clark. Next is Jennifer Blackman,
Okay.
place 2.
Okay, thank you. I'm Jennifer Blackman. I'm running for place 2. I'm sure you've heard, if you've been following these campaigns, I've got 30 years. I'm sorry.
In and out.
30
years of business experience spanning many different industries and functions. So let's get into this question. My real world experience with the disability community is actually on Tuesday afternoons. I teach an after school program for 3rd grade girls. And there are some children in that classroom that have special needs. Not all of them are visible. Some of them are silent disabilities. And just we're interacting with these children, these girls, just having insights from their moms, letting me know as they're dropping them off, she's had a hard day today, her medication's worn off, just, she just needs a little bit of extra quiet. It's just been really insightful for me. And also on that same line, what I've learned on this campaign trail the last 2.5 months is I've spent a lot of time talking with families whose children also are in the SpED programs at our school, including one parent today. She knew I was getting ready for this forum, and she said, "Please let them know how instrumental Miss Levitt at Bridgepoint has been. She's pinpointed my daughter's dyslexia and has made such a difference to her career path already, not career path, but her educational journey already." And so just all this to say that these experiences will strongly influence my decision-making as a trustee. I want to prioritize politics.
It's just a minute 15.
Next up is thank you to all of you for
Now we can.
Kate Ivers, place 1.
Hi, my name is Kate Ivers, and thanks you to the committee for putting this together and for all of you coming today to listen to what we have to say, and I'm excited to be a part of the conversation. I have a freshman in high school, and I have a 7th grader at Hill Country, and neither one of them are a member of the SpED community, but I do have a number of friends who have children who are members of this community. And I also have enjoyed the opportunity on the campaign trail to meet many more families, some of who are in this room, and to hear about some of their challenges and where they are looking for improvement in the programming at Eanes. I'm very aware that the programming that Eanes offers is it's wonderful programming, and that's why we have such a large community, because people do move here for the program that is offered. But I think like anything, there's always room for improvement. And so I think we need to make sure that we get feedback from members of the community as to where we can apply and evaluate some areas of improvement, such as, making sure that the IEPs are applied consistently. And my time is up.
You guys are making my job very last in question to Afshan Khan, place 1.
Hey, I'm Afshan Khan. I'm a parent in the district with 3 kids for 12 years. And this has to be my favorite forum. I might be biased, but this is what I do because I have 15 years of my work involved working with these kids, these parents, and schools doing the IEP and 504. I am a child advocate. I'm a parent advocate. I go to those forums so I can be the voice. I can speak the language that the therapists and the counselors can understand. I speak the language that the parents sometimes can't express. And I believe in real collaboration. I believe in early interventions. And that's kind of been a big reason why I want to run for this position. Be able to explain, be that vision and that thing that we can offer to these kids early. Because sometimes we forget connection is more important than competence and wanting to correct things. And we forget every decision counts, but it has to come with a question: is this going to be helpful for the child in the classroom? And with educational landscape changing, we really need to start talking about this and talk about evolving ways, not just for visible disabilities, but hidden disabilities that gets not seen. Although we are a good district that we can go out and do the testing, but we don't talk about all the resources that we can provide to these families.
Thank you all so much. Appreciate that. So that was, we'll move on to question 2. And seriously, one of you is going to give me a hard time at some point. Again, thank you so much for sticking to the time. Question 2. The Texas versus Kennedy lawsuit challenging Section 504 has sparked concern within the Eanes community. There is a growing fear that weakening the community integration mandate could erode least restrictive environment protections. Given this legal climate, how will you ensure that the rights and protections our students rely on in Eanes remain fully implemented? In this round, we will start with Jennifer Blackman, place 2.
Ready? Don't start yet.
All right, I'm ready. I understand why families and needs are concerned right now. And yes, I did have to write this down. But at the heart of it is the least restrictive environment, LRE, which is a foundational principle of SpED. It is our job to ensure, no matter what's happening in the courts, that our children are educated alongside their peers to the greatest extent appropriate. So to fully implement these protections our students need comes down to 3 things. 1, consistency and training. We have to make sure our teachers and staff understand what LRA looks like in practice, that they feel supported. 2, accountability and data. We've got to be paying close attention to where the students are being served and whether those placements are actually working for those individual children. 3rd is a strong partnership with families. I have heard time and time again, families feel isolated, they feel unheard, they don't feel seen. So at the end of the day, this is about what is right for the kids. I intend to hold dedicated office hours for SpED parents specifically because nobody knows your child better than you do. And I want to hear directly your story, put together a mosaic so that I have that in meetings and whatnot going forward. Thank you.
Next, we'll have Laura Clark, place 2.
You're going to start when I start. Okay, I've seen firsthand what LRB means for our students, not just for those receiving services, but for every kid in the classroom. It shapes who our kids become. It builds empathy, it builds community, and it prepares all of our kids for the real world that they're going to move out into. Eanes has built a strong culture around LRE. We have a real commitment to keeping kids on their home campuses with their peers, and where they belong. Boards ahead of us have set that foundation, and I am not going to stop pushing for that. We need to protect what we have built. We need to ensure that our policies will protect our students' access to LRE, regardless of what happens with Texas First Committee.
Next, we have Austin Con, place 1.
You know,
I guess regardless of leadership's responsibilities, follow the law. And we know disability law is multi-layered. It's got broad protections, and its overlapping protections is going to help us if we just not focus on one law. And what we really need, if we're going to focus on LRE, is more support, more support, more support, more support. Does not mean dollars, means more training for our teachers. Hiring teachers and vetting the teachers that we can really be able to offer those services. And training our TAs, having high expectations of how we make these policies and programs inclusive and be effective. And for that, we also need a lot of resources. Region 13 is one of those resources for both parents and staff to be able to learn how to kind of make this program available. We need to expand our programs. I think First Access, Lego Robotics, Best Buddies, Inclusion Sports. My kid would gain confidence, learn experience from being a mentor. And we all know kids learn from each other. So if we keep it inclusive, we help both the kids, the neurotypical and the neurodivergent. So it helps all our kids.
Kate Ivers, place 1.
I'm in agreement. I think that we need to keep the LRE regardless of what happens with the lawsuit and regardless of what happens at the federal level. I think that that's something that through the board, we can ensure that our policies continue to align with the inclusion of these children in collaborative classrooms. And I agree that it really comes down to training the teachers and making sure that they're supported. So when you have a classroom where you have children that need different support and you have new teachers coming in who don't have years of experience, it's more challenging for them to be able to understand and control for the dynamics in that classroom. And just in our general teaching staff, we're having a large turnover in our special education staff. And I think that that's really complicating what's going on in the classroom. So I think that that's an area where we need to focus and figure out how to compensate and support these teachers correctly. Similarly with our paraprofessionals, my understanding is that that group of individuals is turning over at a very high rate on an annual basis. And so the teachers and the specialists are losing that support. Thank you.
Next is Diane Hearn, place 3.
Okay, so
Hear me?
Hello?
Yeah.
So ensuring the rights and protections and the best educational outcomes of all of our students is extremely important to me, as it is for everyone here in this room. And many voices, as Laura said, have worked hard over the years to develop this Eanes model of integration that we have working so well for us in this district. We need to make sure that our entire community understands the value of that model and is ready to fight for it, because not all of them do. We've heard other people talk about needing more training and continuing this model no matter what, but I want to just pivot a little bit and talk about the dollars associated with this, because this is not an inexpensive model. As real funding dollars adjusted for inflation continue to erode and we struggle to keep proper compensation and support for our staff for what can be a really challenging job at times. I'm really focused on trying to figure out how we can best support this model at the legislative level, because we need more dollars. Just yesterday, I was talking with trustees across the state about how in the next session, there's an opportunity to fight for SpED funding, because they had revamped how they're going to fund special education according to a service intensity funding model. And over the next 6 months, we will seek dialogue with the community as we develop our legislative priorities. And I hope to be hearing from the community that this is one of them that you support.
Last Swasti Opday, place 3.
All right, so I hear the concern as well. My answer is simple. We will follow the law. Eanes will continue to fully implement 504 and these restrictive environment protections. I would just be saying the same thing that everyone else said. We need, solid policies. We need support for our teachers. We need to honor these students where they are and provide them the support. Them being able to learn in the least restrictive environment is literally what community in the world looks like. And it would not be okay with me to strip that from them. I will say that I've heard quite a few times that there's still local communication issues. And so I've heard from parents saying that their 504 or IEP plans are not being honored. And so similar to Jennifer, I would like to create some type of medium where we hear directly from these parents so we can support them and make sure that these plans are being followed. Yes.
How was that?
Right.
12 seconds left.
Okay, question 3. Collaborative classrooms improve academic and social outcomes when implemented with the right structure and support. What is your view of these classrooms in our district, and how would you ensure they are implemented effectively and measured accurately? And we'll start with Afshan Khan, place 1.
I prioritize inclusion. That should be a default, but with the right supports in place. That's so important, understanding those right supports. My child who's neurotypical learns from these things. That is going to be the global stadium for her moving forward. Having that empathy that I can teach from books, having that perspective taking, and even supporting others and knowing how to deal with this when she gets out there in the world. So, but we need to make our classrooms safe because sometimes that's more important. And that happens only by shared responsibility, proper planning, and teacher training, TA training, and more support. And my own experience when I kind of had my kid in 2nd grade had some struggles because the teacher was overwhelmed. And sometimes being a parent volunteer, you get to see those things. I didn't go to the principal. I just had a chat with her, educated her. We ended up just getting into a little more peer groups so that peers can teach each other. For her to sort of know that she just needed that confidence and be able to really assist her TA. She needed to delegate things. And we had a great rest of the year. And that's what it takes sometimes.
Okay, Iris, place 1.
So I think the collaborative classrooms are great for all students at the school district because it helps build character. And but again, I think the way that we need to make sure it works for all kids in the classroom is that the right support is there. I also think it's important for consistency. Again, going back to teacher retention, all the students, no matter who they are, when they develop relationships with their teachers and create a rapport with that teacher, it helps the classroom flow better. And so if we can have retention of the specialists year over year, students feel more comfortable. They're able to focus more on learning as opposed to at the beginning of the year trying to recreate a relationship. And so I think, again, that's really important. I think the other thing that, again, teacher training needs to be there around identifying when students, just because they're in the classroom doesn't mean they're actually, just because they're placed there doesn't mean they're actually being brought into the classroom by the other students and feeling as if they're part of that community. So we need to make sure that the staff is identifying how they can help those students build friendships and really feel comfortable, even though they're just, just because they've been placed in the classroom. Sorry.
Swasti Apte, place 3.
I'm a huge advocate for collab classrooms. Research is very clear that these collab classrooms help both special ed students as well as general ed. Both of my daughters have been in collab classes and have benefited greatly from them at Barton Creek Elementary. I am concerned that there isn't enough support currently in these collab classes. We are seeing the number of collab rooms decline and we are losing aides. When the support isn't there, everyone struggles. We must ensure that these classrooms are implemented effectively by measuring student outcomes and staff to student ratios. I feel very strongly about this. Eanes must shift from a per campus staffing model to a per student model. You can't say that a school with 700 kids with a certain level of needs should receive the same level of support as a school with 500 kids. More students means more support. I'll protect our students by demanding, strong word, a staffing model that ensures campuses with the highest complexities actually have the necessary support to keep classrooms inclusive. The answer is more support, not less inclusion.
Diane Hearn, place 3.
You all know that we take a lot of pride in the collaborative classroom in Eanes, and we've heard other people talk about how it benefits all students who are in the classroom. The opportunities for developing an understanding of those who are different from us are invaluable, and as are the communication skills to appropriately express your needs and provide feedback to others. These are some examples. Supporting this type of learning is part of what makes Eanes graduates great and who go out into the world and then do great things. So that said, I recognize that we can always do better. I understand that, and that we need to properly support our educators and administrators who are working hard every day to facilitate these learning environments. And I want to make sure that every student, parent, and staff member has the opportunity to voice any concerns about both, what isn't going well, but also to let us know what's going right. And they do have those opportunities now. The phrase necessary for some and beneficial for all is used when talking about our collaborative model. We must have the right metrics and thoughtful policies in place to ensure that Eanes is supporting this goal and that every child is benefiting from an integrated model. So if we do staff according to needs, I know that there are some tweaks we can be looking at with metrics, but it is something we take great pains to go to make sure happen.
Laura Clark, place 2.
So the success of collaborative classrooms are based on implementation alongside with fidelity to the IEP. So implementation, teams need real time to collaborate. Finding that time within the budget constraints that we have is going to be a challenge, but it's doable. We have to be incredibly intentional with our master plan, with our professional development days, and how we utilize our paras, our instructional coaches, our student support counselors, all the folks that are part of the team. Fidelity to the IEP, that's always a fun one. That means that the teachers and the parents know exactly what's going on and how their kids are performing. We need to make sure that we have the right assessment tools in place, that we're following those assessment tools, and that the teachers and the parents have a strong communication relationship so that everybody is on the same page. My job as a trustee is to hold administration accountable for implementation, fidelity, and outcomes measurement.
Blackman, place 2.
Thanks. I also, at the risk of being redundant, agree in the value of collaborative classrooms. They are incredibly effective when they're properly supported. And that's the key. They've got to be properly supported. Implementation matters. Consistency matters. Doing away with planning time is not helping our SpED teachers, especially the ones that need to confer with the gen ed teachers. I heard a story about a high school student that is suffering now because that time between classes has gone away. And so it blows my mind how something like just taking away the planning is already having a ripple effect. We've already talked on the high turnover of teachers in our district, and it's even higher at the SpED level. So we've got to make sure we're prioritizing our SpED teachers and instructors and making them feel valued. There is not a one-size-fits-all approach, but absolutely we can do this. There's so much more good. It's just worth it to get this balance right. I was talking with a couple parents in preparation again for this And it just broke my heart when they said, my child has a goal academically, but they've also got a goal to make a friend. And I was thinking about that, and it just really put things in perspective for me. This is about inclusion, but it is about belonging as well. And I think collaborative classrooms, when done right, can get it right.
Thank you all. Next question. Since every dollar spent on special education litigation is a dollar taken away from our classrooms, what is your specific plan to audit and fix the systemic breakdowns driving these lawsuits? And we'll start with Diane Hearn, place 3.
Okay. Unlike private schools, public schools are held accountable to the rights and protections afforded by law. I take comfort in knowing that these laws exist to protect our students, but of course I absolutely hate seeing dollars spent on litigation rather than supporting our teachers and our students. I believe that good communication between families and educators is fundamental to ensuring that Eanes minimizes the possibility of parents turning to litigation to address their concerns. I know both anecdotally and through survey data that the vast majority of parents with children receiving disability services in Eanes are very happy with feedback about our processes, IEPs, and overall communication scoring on the average at 4.5 out of 5 or above on every metric. That said, these are not perfect 5s, and I'm aware that we have some parents with concerns. As with any data, we must not only rely on the averages and look at the averages, but dig into those numbers and understand where and how we can improve. Any lawsuit brought before the district should, of course, make leadership think carefully about the experience of the student and whether, despite the legal outcome of a case, there are changes that could or should be considered going forward and how future legal actions could possibly be avoided. These cases not only require money, but also the time of our staff and our parents, and that's invaluable.
Swasti Update, place 3.
For me, every lawsuit is a lagging indicator. By the time Eanes ISD gets sued, the system has already failed that family. We need to better understand the pain points of the SpED parents and what ultimately got them to the point of suing the district. If we don't know the what or the why, then we can't fix what's broken. First off, I would really like to have there be an independent external review that looks at the last 5 years of complaints, settlements, and near misses. I would want to ask the questions, are there specific programs, specific campuses, which program areas, where did we fail? You can't fix what you can't name. Second, I would want to create a real intake system, not a form that goes into a black hole. I'm not saying that happens, but an intake system that would log issues and assign resources and next steps to fix the issue. There would be service level expectations regarding turnaround times, and there would be escalation pathways for any issues that weren't seeing any progress. Lastly, I will create a very simple but informative dashboard. Key performance metrics could include IEP and 504 compliance rates, staffing ratios, volume of cases brought against the district, response time on family concerns, and student outcomes. That's the kind of transparent governance that district needs.
Jennifer Blackman, place 2.
Thank you. Ultimately, this is not just about reducing legal costs. This is about building a system that families trust, where problems are solved early, and students get what they need. We've been talking about transparency, and Mike's working or not. And I mean, we got to keep going back to that, because if people are feeling isolated, I am glad there are parents that feel that this is working for them. But I've talked to several parents that are having an opposite experience. They feel like the can is just being kicked down the road. So you asked about an audit. I think, what does an audit look like? It looks at patterns in the complaints. Let's go back 5 years or so, something measurable, and let's look for patterns in that. Let's look at the due process cases and the settlements to figure out where those breakdowns are happening. Is it gaps in service? Is it a communication issue? Or is it the inconsistency, the lack of fidelity in the IEP implementation? So once we figure out that, once we diagnose that problem, then we can start applying a solve to it, strengthen the consistency and accountability. we keep hammering on the training for the staff, but that's really critical. And make sure that campus expectations are set. We've got to have consistency at the campus level because there is a lot of variance between among the campuses here. And then again, strong oversight to ensure that services are delivered as expected. Thank you.
Laura Clark, place 2.
Yeah, nobody wants money going into litigation, but we need to look at what happens and how we get to that point. We need to pull up and take a broader look at it. These lawsuits don't come out of nowhere. Don't come out of anywhere. It's a long time. It's a long process for parents to get to that point. We did an audit, I think 8-9 years ago, the Stetson report. So we're coming up on, it probably is time for us to do another full audit of our special ed program. We need to make sure that we are partnering closely with our parents so they feel heard. That's incredibly important. And we need to make sure that we have the proper assessment tools and the accountability systems. We have to hold to those IEPs. And we need to do whatever we can. We need to figure out why we're not holding to those and how we can fix that. I don't want our money going to lawyers, and I don't want the lack of trust that leads to that.
Kate Ivers, place 1.
Yeah, so it's important to recognize, I think that, litigation, it's a symptom of something deeper that's going on. I think that that's a consistent theme that we're hearing here. And so not just from the school district side is it expensive, but for families to get to that point, litigation is so expensive, so time consuming, so emotionally draining. I mean, there really has to be something that family truly feels went wrong for them to get to that point. And so I agree with, I think, most of the comments here today that the question is really digging into where are the patterns and, is it an issue with communication? Is it an issue with early identification and we're not doing that when we need to? Are the IEPs not being met? And so we need to dig in and look and see what the data is showing us. And so as a trustee, that would be something that I would like to see done. I also would like to see, again, we strengthen the system. We need to train the teachers. That's going to help us with prevention if we're looking at the front end as opposed to having to deal with this on the back end. And I also think that continuing to work with the parents and making sure the goals are measurable and understood by the families. I'm hearing that that's a challenge that a lot of families have.
And Afshan Khan, place 1.
I actually have a different answer. Interestingly, because I have 15 years of experience doing this. I do arts, not just for Eanes. I do arts for Austin ISD, Lake Travis ISD, and other ISDs in the district. And I'm going to champion this. Eanes does a great job of what they do with our special ed. We spend 3 times of what the state allocates us. So we got to kind of show some gratitude to that good work that we already do, and we can champion that. Our arts are better. I participate in those. I sit there. And I think the biggest struggle of losing those dollars is communication and implementation. So many teachers do not understand how to implement IEP, not just in this district, but around the region. And that is a big problem. Sometimes it's just simple education of the teachers. IEPs can be made by systems, or 504 can be put on paper, but how is it getting implemented? Are the parents getting the communication done right? I got to sit in one of these things, but the parent was, I often joke with this when the parents come to me and say, I'm getting a lawyer, doctor. And I'm like, this is going to the lawyer's child, your money. So I sat in, we made a small change, sensory breaks, didn't cost the district. And there was no lawsuit. And that's the work we need to do.
Thank you. So next question. School culture shapes how students see themselves. What is your vision for moving beyond awareness to true belonging, where students with disabilities are fully included, valued, and supported on every campus? We're going to start with Laura Clark, place 2.
We've worked very, very hard over probably the last 10 years to really build a community of belonging. We have Best Buddies. Best Buddies Walk yesterday was amazing. We have unified robotics. We have unified softball. We have our spirit team. Our kids are participating in choir and football. These are not isolated programs or isolated incidences. They're proof that we have been intentional in building this culture of inclusion. Students with disabilities are our teammates, our performers, and our competitors, and we can still do better. Culture is set from the top, so we're going to start with adults. The board adopts inclusive policies. Principals will model inclusive language. Teachers will celebrate all of their students. That signals to the students where our values lie. Belonging requires relationships, not just proximity. I want to see more structured peer connections expanded and embedded at every campus and at all levels. Friendships don't happen just because kids share a building. It happens when they are involved and connected and engaged.
Jennifer Blackman, place 2.
Okay, well, let's start with the Eanes. Oh my gosh.
Okay, let's try that again. Let's start with the Eanes mission. Our mission statement is to unite, empower, and inspire every person, every day. So let's remember this mission for Eanes. Inherent in unity, to me, is the sense of belonging, right? So we have got a real seismic shift, which is really encouraging to see. We're going from inclusion to belonging. There's been some great strides, like Laura mentioned with the cheer and softball and whatnot. And I think we just got to build on that momentum. Somebody told me the other day, wouldn't it be amazing, because this is something that we're lacking, at the BPE, Bridgepoint's father-daughter dance, sweetheart dance, if we had a cool-down zone, just there, just a place for kids to just have a break from sensory overload, just little things like that. I know I feel like that, overwhelmed, when I go have lunch with my daughter in the cafeteria. So just being intentional with some of those spaces. I think it's so critical that we already touched on being in the room physically is not the same thing as actually feeling like you matter. There's an inherent worth in what you're bringing to the table. So to the extent that we are making every child feel like they truly belong, that's my vision, and I'm going to do all I can to ensure that we can get to that. Thank you.
Next is Kate Ivers, place 1.
Thank you. I'm similar themes here. I think the inclusion is very important. And I think one of the things that makes Eanes so special is the fact that our students get to stay on their home campus, because I think that it's great that they're going to school with the same kids that are in their neighborhood. So, and I like to see the one, Laura, you didn't mention was the swim team.
Oh,
as a swimmer, I love the fact that there is a unified swim team. But I think kind of expanding on that programming, even outside of school, not just in the classroom, is helpful for these students outside of the classroom to build relationships. I know the SEED Fund has done a great job supporting some of those programs. And I think, again, the programming is there and it's continuing to build on it. So like anything, there's more room for improvement. So thank you.
Ashton Khan, place 1.
We are a unique district, a different kind of parent population. We already know that we're always achieving excellence. And sometimes that kind of could be how we need to encourage our kids, right? So awareness is not just enough. It's getting us to all truly belong, not just from students, not just from the administration, but from parents too. And that's kind of what I've seen. 12 years of being in a district, from when my kids started to how different it is now for my 4th grade at Bridgepoint. It's so much more inclusive, and that I'm very grateful for. And I think as a district-wide campaign, we should embed more daily practices, not just a separate program, but kind of become a practice on a daily basis. We need to hold ourselves accountable, not for just compliance, but outcomes. And I really think the airport is something of a project. If you all don't know, you can kind of get that product and wear it and know for hidden disabilities. We need to create that. We need to create an incubator program, just like our high school has it. So our elementary school, our middle school kids can start coming up with creative ideas, and it can be their idea to be inclusive. So there's so much more for our district to do.
Next is Swasti Apte, place 3.
For me, true belonging means that every student is actively participating in group projects, joining the lunch table, and feeling genuinely valued by their peers. My vision is very similar to what everyone else is saying, fully resourcing our collaborative classrooms, ensuring our teachers have the time and the support in order to truly foster joy and inclusion. I would continue to, support and laud the peer-to-peer best buddies, unified champions programs. Furthermore, I would strongly support integrating universal design for learning principles so that our classrooms can be flexible in accommodating and celebrating diverse learning styles. Special education is a protected commitment, and by prioritizing these resources, I do think we can get to a place where every student feels like they belong.
And Diane Hearn, place 3.
A culture where students with disabilities are feeling fully included and valued and supported on every campus requires that we continue this important work of helping everybody in the Eanes community better understand what disabilities are and also what they are not. Disabilities are highly varied in nature and intensity, and many cannot be visibly observed, as we've heard other people comment on. Integrating learning opportunities into the classroom and extracurricular experiences about disabilities is imperative. And we need to be deliberate in making sure that all students receive these experiences. Best Buddies, unified team experiences that we've heard about, they've been important in helping us build the culture that we desire. Also, other committees on our campuses and bringing people together in fun and social ways to do so. We need to continue to grow and support these. And an area where I do see significant room for improvement is in this area of unseen disabilities. We need to continue to address the stigma around receiving accommodations. Asking for help and accepting it is in fact a strength and not a weakness. Far too many of our students do use the accommodations that they need because they don't want to be different. They don't wish to draw judgment of others. And we need to have room to grow understanding on all fronts to improve inclusive meetings.
Thank you all. So now we're going to move on to community submitted questions. And the first one is, given your professional background, can you share a specific example of when you chose to prioritize people over savings and explain how that value will guide your decisions on the Eanes ISD board for all students, including those in special needs? And we're going to start with Kate Ivers, place 1.
In my professional career, I am on a regular basis negotiating contracts, and it doesn't always come down to the dollars on the contracts. It comes down to what is the long-term implication of those terms. And so I think on a day in and day out basis on the board, I would be looking at what are the decisions that we're making, because we need to balance the priorities of the community with the cost. And right now, I think we're having a little bit of trouble with that. And so we need to make sure that we're looking at efficiencies and at the same time reallocating where we have deficient investment. And so that is something I'm doing on a day in and day out basis with clients that I'm working with as they're going through their own growth challenges. And I think that that would be an applicable skill set that I could bring to the table.
Next is Afshan Khan, place 1.
I'm in people's business. I do people business all day. And part of what I do is, and what makes me different from other psychiatrists out there is I do a lot of preventive psychiatry. And for me, it's kind of getting in there and doing the early intervention, getting to the kid before it can get worse, or how can those outcomes be better for this kid. So that's a long-term money saving, dollar saving business that I do. Part of what I also do is I go out of my way and call the therapist, call that other doctor that person is. Insurance doesn't pay for that time, but it helps. It helps that family to have an advocate. It helps that family to know that somebody can communicate their language. I go out and tell teachers sometimes it's not about punitive discipline. It's about that connection. Connection has better outcomes. And that's the work I already do, and I'm extending that service out, and I'm grateful to be able to offer this to our district because I've seen it on a small scale, and I want to offer this on a large scale, how that's going to make a huge change. Yeah, efficiency-wise and dollar-wise both.
Swasti Apte, place 3.
All right, my background, I work in healthcare. So the majority of the companies I work for are not-for-profit healthcare companies, including Kaiser Permanente, NYU Medical Center. The entire essence of a not-for-profit is exactly, it is not about the money. You need to make enough margin to sustain a mission, but it really is about the patients, about the health plan members. And so I have a lot of experience finding extra dollars to help marginalized populations. I was the vice president of strategy analytics at a long-term care company where the elderly were constantly feeling like, they didn't have the support. People weren't talking to them. They felt isolated. And we came up with strategies and found funding to help them feel better and live, more healthily in the community. So I think the part that I just keep coming up with is it's really about revenue. So there are grants, there's state grants, there's federal grants, there's all types of revenue sources that can help with the savings piece so that we're not actually compromising the people piece.
And Diane Hearn, place 3.
I own several rental properties and I've been managing them personally for over 15 years. And during that time, I have consistently operated with the golden rule. And I think you could ask any of my tenants and they would give me a lot of credit for that. Recently, last year, I took a pretty significant financial loss because I had a tenant of 12 years who had mental health issues and who at one point I thought was suicidal. So, I greatly value these individuals, and in no way at any point was I thinking about the money. When I was thinking about the health of this person who I was interacting with. There have been other examples along the way where I have continuously supported people and given them opportunities to try to get on their feet instead of trying to maximize my profit in the rental world, quite frankly. So it's just a little insight into what I do in my spare time.
And Laura Clark, place 2.
I'm going to ask you to repeat that question.
Of course, happy to do it. Given your professional background, can you share a specific example of when you chose to prioritize people over savings and explain how that value will guide your decisions on the Eanes ISD board for all students, including those in special needs?
Whoops.
Thank you. So I like to think that I've had 3 careers, well, 4 raising kids. But my first one was I worked for almost 15 years in New York City as a marketing director. And so I had to maximize those budgets for clients. My second one was 10 years that I taught preschool. It was like, Methodist preschool. And then my third one is being a school board trustee for the last 6 years. But I want to talk about those years as a preschool teacher, or as my husband liked to call it, my nonprofit job. That is where I really learned, that's where I developed my love and passion for childhood education and childhood development. I taught 2-year-olds. Those are my favorite people. Bring me your 2-year-olds so I can play Play-Doh with them. There's a developmental system to block play. And we see this, and it starts with this very fundamental how you put blocks together. And as they progress developmentally, they end up where they can build these elaborate like stables and castles and things like this with all of these props. But you can't get from one to the other. It has to be without going through the entire process. So yeah, in order to meet my kids' needs who were building blocks here when others were here, it was my nonprofit job. I would bring in whatever resources they need to meet them where they were.
And Jennifer Blackman, place 2.
Thanks for asking for that question to be repeated. I got lost too on that one. So I've earned the reputation since this campaign started for being focused, laser focused on getting our district's financial house in order. And I am going to stick to that, especially in answering this question. Part of being a good steward of our resources includes being wise with how we spend our funds and our teachers and our programs. In my work as a nonprofit consultant, I am tasked with treading under all the cushions to find every last penny so that that funding that's found and hopefully generated in the community through different initiatives that we do for fundraising goes directly to clients and services for the nonprofits that I'm consulting for. So while there is an opportunity I'm trying to say this delicately, but I guess in that kind of role, it is time, resources are strained. Okay, there's no way about it. Every nonprofit will tell you they're understaffed and overworked. And so it's just really finding that balance between getting those dollars from potential donors and then being good stewards with that. As a teacher at Austin Community College, I have to prioritize people over decisions a lot because frankly, I'm working with students that all want an A and it doesn't always work out that way. So it's just helping them pass.
Thank you. Question 2. Families are concerned about retention of special education teachers and aides. What ideas do you have to improve retention, ensuring continuity of care for our learners? And we start with Swasti Apte, place 3.
So for retention, seems to be a common theme across the board. So for me, I'm data driven. I want to know the drivers for why our retention isn't great. Is it that we're not paying them enough? Is it that we're not giving them enough support? Let's ask the questions. A lot of my platform is about asking the why, right? And so let's talk to them. Let's have an exit, survey. Like, corporate America, when you're leaving, they'll ask you like, well, why are you leaving? Was it the pay? Was it the culture? What was it, right? So let's ask them and let's honor, let's take what they say seriously and let's act on it. So I think that having a feeling of belonging, being respected, being paid appropriately, those are things we all want in our professional careers. And I think we need to be able to afford that to them. To the educators, but really, let's not pretend. Let's just ask them what they need.
Diane Hearn, place 3.
Completely agree. We need to be doing exit interviews, and we have not been doing that with fidelity in this district. But I think we want to do something before the exit interview. We don't want to have to be doing exit interviews. First, we need to be doing better regular check-ins with our teachers. We haven't done a climate survey in 3 years. Kind of been repetitive about this in open meetings and other conversations, and that's coming. As many of you know, we have a new superintendent that we hired, and he started January 1, and he fully understands the expectation that the board has of him to be much more engaged with our community, and that includes staff and parents and students. And hopefully you've had a chance to hear him talk about that. But what I'm hearing from teachers is that they need better support in the classrooms, particularly our young teachers. They're coming out of the pipeline with not enough training. So there are efforts from the ledge to support that better. But we just need to be able to put the dollars behind it. It costs money to do training. I mean, there's ways you can do it less expensively. We need to be as efficient. I hate that word, but we need to be thinking about how to do it the best way possible with the limited dollars that we have. But again, fighting for the dollars at the ledge is what we really need to be doing to be continuing the model that we have and that we want to sustain.
Laura Clark, place 2.
So over the last year or two, we've actually put in a lot of work onto this teacher retention concern. We are now working to grow our own teachers. So we are partnering with Texas State and UT with their student teachers, which will bring those kiddos, they're young teachers, in. They will be trained in the way of how we teach. They will have all of the professional development that our teachers have. So when they start with us on day one, they've already been here, they know what they're doing. We've also set up a mentoring program so that our new teachers have somebody to go to ask those questions. We also last year adopted a new state structured funding or compensation model that will hopefully free up some funds for more of our teachers. And then also we need to continue looking at our facilities so that it's not all about compensation, but we do need to increase that compensation for our teachers, and we need to explore those opportunities.
Jennifer Blackman, place 2.
Yes, this is a lever that we've got to get right, this retention of our SpED staff. Somebody just talking with me about the needs, the real needs, is that the consistency of care is so vital. Someone's child might take a while to warm up to a professional, only to find out that that professional isn't coming back next year, and that's devastating. And so every year it can feel like they're starting over again. So we've talked about mentorship, which I think is fantastic. We also need to acknowledge that the compassion fatigue is very real. Burnout happens. Where do our teachers go for replenishment, right? We talked about, Diane mentioned regular check-ins. I think that is crucial too. And yet there is a culture of fear in some of the campuses for fear of speaking out, for fear of retribution. I've talked to a lot of parents and teachers who feel this way, and that's something that we've got to get right. We need to reinstate planning time. Let's figure out a way to get the schedules correct so that we can get the planning time back. And yes, we do need to absolutely adjust compensation. And let's be mindful that for every teacher that leaves our district, we're spending about $15,000 to backfill that position. So let's allocate that money a little differently and get them to stay so they're not leaving.
Afshan Khan, place 1.
So the story I was telling you about the second grade teacher, he left. There was natural attrition, I'll call it. And sometimes when you have declining enrollment, natural attrition could be good. What I really need to talk about is how do we hire? Are we letting these young teachers to know that they're ready to take on this district? We have a different population, and we need to first figure out how we're ready that hiring. We need to talk about professional development. These young teachers need support. They need a lot of support. Do we have formal channels for them to be able to express their concerns, talk about how much support they need, and talk about their burnout? So we need to create more of those formal channels, and being able to really kind of support them in getting that professional development. So we should start off by looking at hiring rather than looking at who's leaving, and start there, I think.
And Kate Ivers, place 1.
So I agree that the climate survey would be a great thing. It sounds like we haven't done one in a while, and the exit interviews. I'm in agreement that cutting the planning time, I've heard that a lot, that is making it very difficult for the special education teachers to work with the general ed teachers and to work with the specialists to make sure that the students in the various different types of classrooms are moving on track with their goals. I think that balancing the budget is critical, and that's a larger issue that we talked about a lot at the prior forum, but I think we need to reallocate our funds. I don't think we can wait for the legislature. I think it's good to move forward at pushing at that level, but there are things we need to start addressing now. And same with the natural attrition. I think we need to do strategic reallocation, and we do not want to be losing our teachers with the most tenure, who have not only received their education, but who have also spent day in and day out working with children. They're in such a better position to be able to identify challenges and address them sooner. We're also asking for them to mentor, but we aren't compensating them for that. So got my red.
And final question. The district is deeper in debt. Class sizes are growing and programs are getting cuts. What ideas do each of you have to generate extra revenue for the district? And we start with Jennifer Blackman, place 2.
I love a good revenue question.
Oh my gosh. Off the top of my head, some things that we could do are the public-private partnerships, which we've talked about. We've talked about naming rights and other forums. But getting a little bit more into this, we can, I mean, I mentioned at the last forum, but I'm just going to say it again. We can
Charge more. Oh my gosh, I'm just gonna yell. We can charge more for parking at the high school. We can have a reserve for if students, if that isn't working in their budget, we can have a reserve that's allocated for financial need. But there are definitely levers in this community where we can increase revenue for things like that, for tickets to student events. I don't know what is going on.
I'll bring my own mic next time. Just trying to think more ideas for generating revenue. My work as a nonprofit consultant, I write grants for nonprofits. There is so much opportunity with the big tech behemoths and other consumer products companies that are in our backyard to write grants. HEB does great work in other school districts, underwriting programs there. So it's just being creative. It's looking for different ways to explore revenue generation, but I'm all in. I love looking for ways to get money, especially for our district and things I care about. So then.
And Laura Clark, place 2.
Yeah, this question's been asked of us a lot, and so forgive me if I sound like I'm repeating myself and everyone else. But naming rights was a big policy that we passed that will free up EEF to be able to go out and partner with folks in the community and help raise some of those bigger amounts of money. The private-public partnerships are huge. Robotics does this very, very well, where they partner, they bring in mentors from all over the area, and those mentors are really able to help and fill in where we're not able to necessarily staff people. These are after-hour programs where they're coming in and helping us. We need to continue looking at those opportunities. We have to be strategic about every single dollar that we spend. Incredibly strategic. We need to be strategic about our buildings and the efficiencies and where we can find efficiencies and the facilities and our ability to rent out our facilities. And there's lots of opportunities there.
Thanks for that. Option 1, first 1.
Like Laura said, we've said this a few times in another forum and on our websites and things like that. Grants, partnerships, great. I really want to focus on our pre-K. With the declining enrollment, we need to kind of expand our pre-K programs. Get all our kids to kind of play together so they end up in our school district instead of going to private schools. We need to expand our CDC. Our Child Development Center is so beloved, has a waiting list. There's so much of room to improve that CDC. We need to talk about summer enrichment programs, adult enrichment programs. We can create spaces where our adults who don't have kids in their district can come out for a good morning. We need to create this community feel that can be equally sustainable revenue generating. And I mentioned this, we did our baccalaureate. We brought in a dedication page that supports our baccalaureate program because we were tried on our funds and now we're surplus and we can actually give back to our project graduation. So there are ways that this community can do it.
Kate Ivers, place 1.
We all have a lot of good ideas for revenue generation. I agree with a lot of them, the public-private partnerships, naming rights, things like that. I think another thing that was mentioned was EEF, and I think there is an opportunity there. And I know the C Fund in particular has been used for teacher training and for teacher retention bonuses and for where I ended on my last question was helping compensate some of these more tenured teachers for the mentoring that they're doing for the newer teachers and supporting some of the sports programming, and that is great. And so I think we just need to continue to work with EEF. But I think part of that is it's been a rough few years for us with donations, because there are a lot of things that have gone on in the community that have made it difficult for EEF to raise money, including cutting a lot of the student-facing curriculums. And so I think we need to make sure that we do everything we can to partner with the community and build back that trust. And I think that'll go a long way for us to get more financial support from the community through EEF.
And Diane Ahern, place 3.
Okay, I will eventually reiterate a lot of what people have said, but I'll say one that hasn't been said yet, and that's career and technical education. The state incentivizes us to provide CTE programming for students, and we have been very far behind the ball here because our community has traditionally supported children going on to four-year colleges. Things are shifting. We see that. We see that higher education is shifting and the needs of our students are shifting. We have the opportunity to think about investments in our buildings that could support these types of programs. And there's going to be a lot of conversation in the community about that. You know, you've heard a lot about bonds, and I'll say it again here. The board has not taken a position on bonds. We want to hear from the community. We have a lot to talk about there. Public-private partnerships, yes, of course, grants and naming rights. Teacher incentive allotment, I don't think has been said again, but it's already been mentioned once, to possibly bring more money in merit-based pay for teachers. Rental pricing for our facilities. Community enrichment, I love. I've been talking about it for years on the board, in conjunction also again with those buildings, and how do we design our buildings to be able to bring in more community enrichment. You make them community centers. Digital learning is something that's on the horizon too, where we might be able to bring in more dollars. And then finally, I can't stop talking about advocacy. I know it's a hard road, but we have to continue pushing for more dollars in the ledge.
And Swati Apte, place 3.
So revenue generation is my jam. So I'm going to try to echo all of these really great ideas. We, as a school district, are very capital intensive heavy. I think we need to leverage that. So, for example, think of Westlake's Performing Arts Center, super sophisticated. What if we did a partnership with Zach Theater, right? And had, as you know, offered classes, theater classes, music, etc., and allowed them to, you know, take those classes at Westlake High and use the auditorium, perform. So, which is similar to a public-private partnership. Westlake High School's parking lot, super close to South by Southwest, ACL. We should be looking at event parking and transportation, providing shuttles, right? Charging for the parking, providing shuttles to some of these larger events. We should be looking at community endowments. We should be looking at tuition-based enrichment programs. And then, you know, there are tons of things in terms of public-private partnerships. Diane just mentioned CTE. Samsung Austin Semiconductor actually gives $1 million away for a CTE wing. They actually built it for Taylor ISD. And then there's a ton of grants. So if you want to come find me, we have our school districts are neighboring up right next to us, are taking advantage of grant funding and public-private partnerships.
Thank you. So now we'll move on to closing statements. Each candidate will now have 75 seconds for closing remarks. We will start with Ashan Khan, place 1.
For the 15 years of the health psychiatrist, I've sat with families. I've seen how early support and follow through can change a child's life. For 12 years as a parent in the district, I've experienced our school firsthand, the hopes, the challenges, and the trust families place in them. Both roles have taught me this. Inclusion isn't just a policy, it's a practice. It happens when supports are real, plans are followed, and every child is seen as a potential, and they can reach that potential at every level. I believe early intervention matters. Behavior is just communication, and every decision should answer one question: will this help the students succeed in a classroom? Are we talking about collaborative problem solving for these kids to kind of figure it out? Are we talking about connection over compliance? Are we talking about not doing punitive discipline? Are we talking about consistently applying these IEPs and teaching these teachers to implement these IEPs, building real collaboration with families? I see the gaps and the possibilities every day in my clinic as a parent, and I want to extend this out to our community and be part of this big program. So I would be honored to earn the award for the school board trustee place 1.
Kate Ivers, place 1.
Thank you, and thanks again for coming today. I think that I have an interesting background from my legal career that has helped me develop a tool set that allows me to sit in a room with a group of individuals who have different direction in mind, and I can help identify the shared priority in that room and navigate through that situation to get to an end result where the group can move forward as a team. And so I think that that's an interesting skill set that I can bring to the table. And so for this group in particular, I would like to see, improvement again in early identification, because I think that that is critical. And how do we support the teachers in doing so? I think we need to have the policies written at the board level to allow us to do that. And so as an attorney, I think I could support us through that. I also think that we need to have fiscal responsibility, because without the fiscal responsibility overall, we're going to have a hard time drilling down into the individual areas and making sure that we have support across programming like the special education program. Thank you. Place 1, Kate Ivers. Out of time.
And Jennifer Black, place 2.
Okay, thanks. I am Jennifer Blackman, and I would love the opportunity to earn your vote for place 2. I mentioned my 30 years of business that spans many functions and industries. And what you might not know is that I lived 20 years before those 30 years. And yes, I'm 50. And in those first 20 years, so much of it was spent moving around for my dad's job. We lived in a lot of different places. So I was used to being the new kid a lot in school. And there was that sense of, how do I build rapport quickly? How do I find connection with people who are really different than me? And I think that that has served me well as an adult. I love to collaborate. I guarantee I could talk to each one of you, and I guarantee we'd find something that we have in common. So it's taking my business background and those skills and marrying them with the fact that this all comes down to everybody feeling seen and heard and having a sense of belonging. I pledge to continue these conversations if elected to the board. I pledge to meet with you individually, hold regular office hours with SpED families specifically, so that I can continue to listen, gather information, and be a voice for you and your child. Thank you.
Laura Clark, place 2.
So again, Laura Clark, I would love your vote for re-election for place 2. I've served on this board for 6 years. My work, I would say, kind of within the framework of special ed, actually goes back longer than that, to when I first started teaching preschool. And I realized the difference in kids. And it's not, a 2. It's just developmental differences. We're seeing some red flags, but a lot of these kids don't have any sort of diagnosis or anything at that point. And I was so amazed with these students, and so compelled to provide them in my classroom the best educational opportunities that I could. That is why I ran for the board the first time 6 years ago, and that hasn't changed at all. If anything, it has even deepened my commitment. That commitment is not just to our special ed students, it's to every single student. Every student has their own story. Every family has their own story. And I'm committed to ensuring that those stories get told and that those kiddos receive the opportunity so they can be the best versions of themselves.
And Diane Hearn, place 3.
Hi, and thank you for the opportunity to be here today and to talk about this topic that's so important for our community. And it doesn't touch every single person in our community, but I think we need to raise awareness about this to the best that we can, because what happens, the education we give to our SpED students, the support that we give to our SpED students really benefits someone. I've mentioned that before. I hope that I've demonstrated that I have a pretty thorough understanding of how we've been successful and where we can still improve, and that we have some significant challenges ahead of us as a district. And I'm going to say it again, the fiscal challenges of balancing the budget, there's really tough decisions to be made. And we talked about how we can hopefully start to address those. We have brought in a new superintendent. I think that we have a lot of opportunity to work with him and to have all of you engage in this strategic planning process that he's started to unfold and hear what you all want for the future of the district, hear your ideas so that we can write a new mission and vision and make Eanes sustain it as the excellent district that it's been for many years. Thank you.
And Swasti update, place 3.
Yes, so, where was I gonna start? Oh, so there was, the district that did a really great thing in that they issued a survey for everyone and anyone within the district to really identify what was most important to them in the district. And the top 2 things were minimizing disruptions for students in the classroom and taking care of our teachers. So we have our marching orders, right? We need to take care of every single student, meet these students exactly where they are and support them. And we need to take care of our teachers. I have been brought in as a healthcare consultant to many kind of turnaround situations. My approach is you go in, you just start asking questions, start connecting the dots, figure out where the pain points are and make it better for everyone else. So I have a 2nd grader and a 6th grader in the district. I'm here to say, and I'd be honored for your vote for Police 3.
Excellent. Well, thank you all. Thank you to the candidates and thank you to our community. Thank you to the Special Education Parent Partner Committee for hosting this event and Laura Library for letting us use their facilities. Early voting begins tomorrow, April 20th at Bee Cave City Hall and Randall's Flagship and runs through April 28th. Election Day is Saturday, May 2nd. Additional voting locations for Election Day only are right here at Laura Bush Library, Lost Creek Limited District, Riverbend Center, Westlake United Methodist Church, and the 2 early voting locations at Bee Cave City Hall and Randall's Flagship. Thank you so much for being here and make sure you go vote. Everyone have a great day.